Good day, ladies and gentlemen. I just read Flesh and Steel by Guy Haley, and it is criminally underrated. Like all Warhammer crime stories, this book takes place in the grimy hive city of Varangantua. Here we follow probator Simeon Noctis, a former rich kid playboy who has forsaken the Kool-Aid in favor of joining the police force. Without spoiling too much, he ends up in a very dangerous and complicated case after finding a murder victim divided over the Red Way. The Red Way is the heavily guarded division line between the Imperial and Admech territories. And since one half of the victim is in Imperial territory and the other half in the Admech territory, the case already starts off with a very complex political scenario. But after joining up with the quirky, weirdly human tech priest Robo and Lux, the case only becomes more and more convoluted. If you want to know if they'll be able to solve this case, if Noctis really is who he says he is, and if Noctis will be able to get his hands on some toaster nussi, you will have to read the book for yourself. Jokes aside, both Noctis as well as Lux are really damn interesting. No one really seems to understand Noctis' life decisions and why he is so hateful of the rich nobles. Sure, he keeps repeating it stems from some naive ethical conviction, but who is he really trying to convince of that? You or himself? Lux meanwhile acts really hard to seem like a robotic, cold-blooded cyborg, and like all tech priests, a significant portion of her has been replaced with robotic parts. But cracks show up regularly in the persona, which reveal that there is more to her than the mask she puts up. Alongside the mystery that the characters solve in the book, you also get their true personalities revealed to you, piece by piece. Another massive highlight of this book is the world building. Unlike most other 40k books that feature very well explored factions and army related sets that we have seen 100 times over, Flesh and Steel takes a deep dive into the day-to-day life of an Imperial citizen. What Haley does so well in this regard is that he really places himself into the world of 40k and asks himself the question, what would this be like in 40k? For every single item, person or activity. Cats might be normal to us, but to these starving hive folk on the other side of the galaxy, a cat is not just unheard of, but also seen as a ridiculous concept. A heart might seem like a typical simple source of warmth, especially found in poorer areas to us, but on planets that haven't seen a tree in a millennia, burning actual wood is a depiction of absurd wealth. What also helps is that Haley has invented a metric ton of 40k-isms. Sure, we all know about the Vox and the Recaf, but have you heard about Smile Girls or Ambrosia yet? Or what about Rune Boards, Novoplaz and Kalina? Oh, and don't even get me started on the sayings. I mean, let me quote my favorite one for you. By the sainted balls of the 9 Primarchs! Which you might have guessed is an expression of displeasure. This book is so damn immersive that I'm honestly really sad it ended. To make matters even better, the book heavily features the Steel Mount Admech, and just like Haley explores the differences between us and the Imperials, Haley also goes to a great length to display the differences and quirky details of the Mechanicus compared to the Imperials. Taking a look for an example at the Lex and the Lore, the Law of the Imperium and the Mechanicus respectively, or taking a look at the semi-heretical religious practices and beliefs of the Admech, which the Ecclesiarchy conveniently refuses to look into. And yes, of course, this is Haley, so this also involves a whole bunch of dope tech freakery, such as the skinhead tech priest who went as far as to flay his own skull to remove the impurity of the flesh. We also get to take a look in a servitor factory, which, to be honest, was a more horrific passage than I have ever read in Warhammer horror. Seriously, that was some next level dystopian inhuman shit. I mean, hats off to Haley for coming up with it and exploring the psychological reactions of the human and Admech characters involved with it, but boy oh boy, that was dark, even for 40k standards. This book furthermore contains a metric ton of quotable sayings and wisdoms. I mean, don't expect some groundbreaking new dawn for philosophy, but the discussion on time for an example, or the philosophical discussion of the Admech were quite clever in my opinion. If Noctis wasn't such a hypocritical shithead, he might actually have been considered a wise character. The only real criticism I have about this novel is that the ending is a bit stupid. I don't mean the actual ending, that was fine, but after the plot of this book ends, the book rapidly introduces a bunch of cliffhangers and shocking reveals. This wasn't exactly sold to me as a trilogy or a duology, but after finishing this book, it really doesn't feel finished at all. It gives me the same feeling I had after watching Dune or reading The End in the Dead Volume 1, where I have more questions and confusion than when I started reading it. So if this gets a sequel, then I suppose it is okay, but it has been 3 years since this was released and there is no sequel yet. I don't want to be a doomsayer, but at least now you can say I didn't warn you that this story might never be resolved. Altogether, I will give Flesh and Steel 5 out of 5 Smile Girls with an asterisk. Provided this book gets a sequel, it is a 5-star book with a solid cliffhanger. If it remains a standalone, I'll slot it under 4 Hapclaves out of 5 Zerovas. Flesh and Steel is a super grimy, extremely immersive crime thriller, which honestly makes me very excited to see what else the Warhammer Crime label has in store. It features excellent world building with impressive attention to detail and a treasure trove of 40k-isms. The main characters are interesting as well as entertaining, the plot is a banger, and a surprising amount of depth is given to the philosophy of the world around them. Great book, finished it in 3 evenings. If you liked this video, please consider subscribing and click ringing the bell to appease the Great Horned Rat. For more lore content, please check my main channel and leave any book recommendations in the comments down below. I gotta get back to reading the next book.